Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to the Janus community meeting. Serena cannot make it this week, so I will be hosting it. And we are March 16th. I will share a document in the chat that will contain the agenda. If you have anything to add or you would like to talk to, then you can just add it in there. Everybody should have access. Otherwise, just let me know. Okay, so we are introducing a few new things in the community. We are using the Good First Issue label in GitHub. So when we have very easy and straightforward issues, we will label them with the Good First Issue, and then anybody can go from there and just pick it up and work on it. So that will get the folks familiar with the processes, how to help the community, or even like go on Slack and chat with the folks and do the pull request without having to do like a big issue, and then that's a good way to get started. Next, I think, Tom, do you have any updates for some of the plugins?
Yes, I would like to start with an update on our downstream Janus IDP Helm chart, which I'm posting a link to a merged PR in the agenda here and in the chat. So as you can see, we've merged the PR, which rebases our downstream chart on top of the upstream one that we helped develop. And if you track with us back from the time when this effort started, there was no backstage upstream chart for Helm for backstage at all, and there were like competing downstream solutions and other stuff. So we kind of got together with upstream and put together an upstream chart in the backstage/charts repository, and we co-maintain it. And we decided to rebase our downstream chart, the Janus IDP chart, on top of this one because it's more mature and more provides more features and more control for people. So we kind of wanted to incorporate this upstream chart into a Janus IDP chart. And you may be asking, why do we need yet another chart for backstage? We want to enrich backstage in this particle chart with OpenShift specific functionality that we can't upstream because it's a vendor specific thing. So what we did there is we basically take the upstream chart as a dependency, as a Helm subchart, and use it with a value alias called upstream, so you can still do all the value templating that you would do with the upstream chart with additional features for OpenShift. So currently we support only OpenShift routes instead of ingress. So if you want to use OpenShift routes, you can do it with this particle chart. You can't do that with the upstream one. And we want to enrich this process with this chart with other OpenShift specific functionality like build configs and whatnot if you want to build your backstage in cluster. So that's the idea. And we released a new major version of our downstream chart since it's a breaking change. Yeah, it's there up for grabs and ready to be battle tested in your setups. So that's free to take from the Janus IDP charts repository. So you should be able to do something like this and then install the Janus IDP /backstage chart. That's for the Helm charts, and I have one more topic. So, Raf, if you don't mind, I'll continue with my update. And and skip you. Good. So we have one more thing going on in the OCM plugin space, and we are also doing quite a big of a rewrite there. Over the time when we were developing other plugins like for Quay, Freescale, Keycloak and stuff, we noticed that there are some discrepancies in how we approach various things across our plugins. And this is natural since all of these plugins are rapidly developing and then it's different people developing different plugins. So we want to kind of unify the experience, and we noticed that in OCM, for example, we use a separate settings key for the plugin, which doesn't really make sense and doesn't really fit the paradigm of catalog providers, because the main reason for a OCM plugin to be is to enrich the Backstage catalog. So with this change, and this is still an open PR and we are still testing things there, is to move and relocate and maybe polish the settings for OCM plugin a bit, so you get the unified experience across different catalog providers, and you don't need to learn new things just for the OCM and figure out where to put this particular settings elsewhere than you are used to from other plugins. So that's what we are doing there. It should also allow you to specify multiple hub clusters, which you probably don't want to do, or you probably don't have the need to do, because you usually don't have multiple hub clusters in OCM. But it's in line with how other catalog providers are configured, that you can have different environments and whatnot. So we allow that feature as well with this change. And one last thing that I have on my on my agenda here is it's a unification of our CI/CD pipelines for different repositories in the Janus IDP. So with this and some associated PRs, we reuse the same workflows in WebSocket proxy and in the Red Hat vanilla Backstage build repositories. So we can build the repository as either as a, well, all of that is being built as a container image, but each of the OCI images is built as a multi-arc image, and it's pushed into multiple registries. So by default, we push to GitHub image registry, and we mirror those packages to Quay as well. So we, using this CI/CD, we basically produce ARM and AMD 64 builds and mirror that to two different image registries. So that is kind of making our images more available to consume. So yeah, that's, I think, the three biggest updates that we have on our end. And next is Raf.
Yeah, thank you. So we are looking at using the Janus IDP showcase image in other demos. Other demos have or Backstage setup may have slightly different requirement. Will have slightly different requirements. So I have created a pull request to be able to use that image in these other settings that we have. Namely, one is the demo.redhat.com setting, that demo that we are preparing for Janus, and another is another scenario is a personal setup that I have with Backstage and in general and an IDP. So I created 4 PRs that I would like, the steering committee or the maintenance for this repo to evaluate. 3 of them are in the bucket of better integration with GitHub, and the 4th one is just adding the SonarQube plugin. So, so the SonarQube plugin should be pretty simple. It's just yet another plugin that can be displayed if you want it. I think the only question would be, where should it be in the component, entity page in terms of layout? Take a look at if you like what I did there. And then you may decide you don't want it, but I think it's a fairly common plugin. The other 3 instead go, like I said, in the direction of better integration with GitHub. So we have the GitHub entity provider, which is essentially a crawler, the ability to configure a crawler that crawls a GitHub organization and finds all of the entities that are described in GitHub repos using a pattern, a recognition pattern, and so you can automatically catalog components, systems, resources, whatever you want, right? There is just a way to express where to find those components. Then there is the GitHub Org Explorer, which is a similar concept, but it will discover users and groups based on GitHub users that belong, GitHub organization members, they become users, and GitHub teams without an organization, that those teams become groups in Backstage. So now you start to have an automated way of discovering the organizational structure of a company, right, of an enterprise. And the third, and so in Backstage uses this information to determine ownership, right? So now you can say that a team owns a component, and you have discovered automatically both the component with the first plugin and the team with the second configuration. And then the third PR is about identity resolution, which means if I am logging into GitHub, I get and I have the plugin that discovers the GitHub organization, then it's nice to have a way to know that the person that is logging in is actually a user that was automatically discovered. So the identity resolution PR is about being able to do that matching between the user that logs in and the user that has been discovered as an entity in Backstage. Once you have that matching, because that user that has been automatically discovered has ownership relationships with other entities in Backstage, then you can start creating ACL and permissions, right? You can start creating an airbag system where you know who's logging, you know what they own, and then you can decide what they can do with what they own and what they don't own, right? So that's a foundational step to being able to add airbag if we are interested to that in the future.
Yeah, thanks. Those are awesome contributions. For the SonarQube, we had an issue open for a while, so that's good that someone can contribute and add the plugin. I think two of the PRs are ready to go. That was just a build issue yesterday, so if it's solved, we can merge this. And the one for getting the users and groups, we can probably accept it now, but that's probably just temporary. Ideally is to have to discuss more about like an enterprise environment, because probably not all users in the company will be on GitHub. We could have other personas like QA managers, maybe executives who won't be added to GitHub, but they would like to either log in or access the information and view some content within Backstage. So we'll have to do things more with LDAP, Active Directory, and other systems. So
Yeah,
for now,
I
that's
think
all we have. So we'll probably add it, but
Yeah.
at some point we might just remove that and replace it
Yes.
with something else.
I am not sure, but if I understand how Backstage works, you can add several organization providers, and then
providers.
via configuration you turn some on and some off, right? So
Correct.
you could also have the LDAP, this organization, this provider, and it should be able to coexist with the GitHub one.
It should.
And then, but where I think we need some conditional logic is in the identity resolver, because you probably want to be able to say, if I'm logging in via GitHub, I want to use the GitHub identity resolver. But if I'm logging in via LDAP, I want to use the LDAP identity resolver, right? And that logic is not in the PR because it's the first one. And anyway, I wouldn't know how to write that logic. So in that case, I think I need, you guys maybe have better understanding how that part works.
Yeah, we'll have to do more testing and see to make sure that everything works. I see Tom, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I have a question to this. It made me curious that you are mentioning LDAP and other identity providers for like management personas and whatnot. It made me curious about the targeting of Backstage Showcase, because what I knew about Backstage Showcase for Janus IDP is to have this publicly available as wide audience as it can get, and I don't understand how like things like as specific customers or specific companies LDAP plays a role in that, if we're trying to make this as open as possible. So I'm just curious about your thoughts on this.
Yes, so things are still evolving. So we are changing sometimes, like some of the strategies. So definitively the Showcase app, that's more public. Anybody can use it, can use the image. It's still missing some plugins or some setup, so it can accommodate most of the setup or different environments. This one specific to LDAP, Active Directory, that would be more for an enterprise environment. So it might not be necessarily inside the Showcase, maybe more in a product, but that's things we have to discover, test, to see what we can do, and maybe reuse the same image. But we still have some experiment to do there. So this was more to explain one of the pull requests. We can accept it for now, but it might not stay there in the future, except if the way Backstage is done allows us to have multiple providers, and then we should be able to do that. It's just we didn't have a chance to test and go that far. So.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. I see that next Patrick is going to show some update on the Showcase app.
Yeah, so we have some new stuff that we've added to the Showcase app. Let me share my screen right quick. Is everyone able to see it?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So we have the topology plugin now, so you're able to see like basic information on the deployment and the pod within the OpenShift cluster. Well, this is an OpenShift cluster. I think they're trying to make sure that it runs on all Kubernetes clusters. Still very basic. It's still a work in progress. They're planning on adding more features to it. We also have the Security Insights tab, which is pulling security information from our Backstage Showcase repo. And then we also have our Golden Path templates. So we have .NET, Go, Node.js, Python, Quarkus, and Spring Boot. And all of these are set up so that you can have information given to Argo CD for deployment, as well as setting up a CI method between GitHub Actions and Tekton.
Cool, that's awesome. Yeah, so I think last time we announced the topology plugin availability. So there, if you didn't have a chance to try it or see it, what it looks like, then that's a good place on the showcase app. So it's definitely, it won't be as complete as the one in OpenShift, because OpenShift can do like trigger icons also from the UI. But this one will be able to show like the topology not only from OpenShift, but any other in Kubernetes. So this is kind of pretty cool. And we want to hear feedback from it. So if someone already used it or is going to use it, and you have anything to any feedback, then feel free to come to the Slack channel or like the community Slack and give us the feedback there, or like through the Git issues.
One thing I want to add on topology. Hello, I'm Yuval. I'm a UX designer, and we did in storage. We took the topology view that we have today in OpenShift, and we enhanced it a bit, and we created a way of drilling down and not seeing all the information at once. So, for example, if I want to troubleshoot what happened to my PVC, I can see, a view of my nodes, drill down to one node, see all the resources that are running on it, and we're kind of like showing the connections between the different resources. So I will share the screenshots in our Slack channel so you can.
Sure, that would be awesome. Thanks.
I have a question. Shouldn't there be a? How do you pick which cluster you're connected to in this view?
Yes, so this is also something work in progress. We want to be able to do that. So that would be with the, this is linked, I think, with the, I don't think we have the developer on the call, but I think that's linked with the Kubernetes plugin. So you can have multiple clusters defined there. We have to work on this view to be able to select.
Okay, so there will be like a drop down. Okay.
So we are trying to have a UX UI person, so we'll be able to have also something that is to just improve this, because we are not also designers there. So, but we're going to get some help there, so we'll be able to provide like a pretty good experience.
Okay. Thank you.
We have a PR open to allow filtering by clusters, so there's some work ongoing in that regard as well.
Cool. Okay, and the last thing is we have a new blog post since the last call. I'm going to share the link on the chat. Otherwise, that's available on the janusidp.io. That's about the topology plugin. So if you have not read it, you can just go there. And I don't have any other updates. Not sure if anyone else has something.
I see Oleg in the agenda.
Yeah.
Yes, correct. Sorry, Oleg. Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah, so I've just been working on upgrading Backstage upstream to use React 18. It seems like it is kind of important and brings a lot of features that the plugin system would use. And I spoke to Paul Schultz because I saw that he did some Next.js work on DevFile, and I was just talking to him, and he was telling me, or he also brought up the idea of potentially migrating the front end for Backstage to use Next.js. I know this is something Tom and I had briefly discussed as well, but I was thinking about it, and there are a few benefits that this could bring, such as like asynchronously loading components would be better because we could send data to, we could already send like something of a rendered page to the client before the data starts loading. And then because we could also leverage server-side rendering and server-side generation, we would be able to like expose some information that we could then include on something like the source and potentially like SEO it. I'm not sure how SEO on the source works, but like for instance, if you want to look up like, oh, running like smog cluster or just some cluster information, you could type that into the source and then it could potentially link to one of the backstage projects. I don't know if that's something that would work, but there are a few benefits, and I just wanted to kind of pitch the idea and see whether this is something we would want to do, or if this is something that would really help us with the current issues facing the backstage community as well as Janus.
Well, that would be definitively usually helping, like a big improvement. So React 18 definitively that would be like a good one. I will always make sure that the maintainers are okay to move with that. Sometimes they have a good reason that they didn't do it yet. They do have some other work to do before. But React 18 will be good. I think Material UI also switching from 4 to 5 would be a good one. Next.js, personally, I like it a lot. It just like using that within React and the plugins might be lots of work, or might have some lots of issues. So I'm not sure. We have to really think about this, or like do some testing first, because we don't want to have the community having to change things in the plugins or having to rebuild things. So.
Yeah,
This one might require maybe some like discussions before like starting working on it.
yeah.
And I will also check with the maintainers to make sure that that would be something they will accept.
Okay, thank you. I agree. In any case, it seems like React 18 would be a prerequisite anyway. Oh, and there is an open issue that Tarash made for it. Tanya, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I think this is opening a very interesting question for me. Like, I totally agree that we should migrate to React 18 and Material UI version 5 and whatnot. I totally support that. But it's opening an interesting question for me is how, what does it mean for our plugins and potentially a support matrix? Do we want to be backwards compatible with our plugins with like current Backstage versions, or do we want to track with like all these changes and then only support the latest and greatest? What are the thoughts on this? Because I really don't have an idea, and I don't think we have a manpower to support like multiple Backstage versions and whatnot. But I think it's an interesting question to entertain, to understand what our position is on that.
That's a great question. So I was wondering about this as well, and I asked on the issue. It seems like the strategy they use for it is they want to upgrade 2 versions of React. So we would be deprecating React 16, and anyone using 16 would need to migrate to either React 17 or React 18. In me doing this, I'm probably going to have to migrate a lot of these plugins myself. I'm not sure. I'm still like actually getting into the weeds of it, so I'll see how difficult that will be. But yeah, I think that as long as we have the plugins on React 17, then it shouldn't be an issue. I'm assuming that the ones for Janus were probably started with React 17, but I could be wrong. Again, that's something that I'll have to just see. But at the moment, I've basically forced the updates in my project's package JSON to use React 18, and it breaks a lot of things. And I'm just going like package JSON by package JSON and just having to actually resolve a lot of these conflicts.
Like our Janus plugins are running React 17, but my question is more like, if upstream Backstage migrates to React 18, can we also upgrade to React 18? Or do we need to wait until upstream migrates to React 19 when we can migrate to like the next version?
So
where our plugins would track, and what does it mean for the support?
yeah, so that's another good question. They actually, I'm trying to find it. I don't think I have the tab open, but for I think it was either React Router or React. No, it was React Router. There was an update for it. And the way that was handled was they exposed the CLI command that basically performed the migration for you automatically. Of course, you could have also done it yourself manually, but they just provided a script. It might be a bit more complex with an actual React upgrade because at this point you're having to change some aspects about the code. But I would imagine for our process, so for your question, it would probably look like you could migrate as soon as you want, or you can wait until React 19 is a thing and then upgrade then. For React 19, well, I don't know if does React have server components already? Was that part of 18, or is that something that's still being proposed for 19?
I think that was 18, but
okay.
Well, this is definitively part of a larger discussion. Ideally, that would be good to have versioning on the plugins, so we can have different versions that you can install on different versions of Backstage. Ideally, is we can update Backstage to React 18, but the plugins don't have to be updated; they can still work. But yeah, I think we have to do some experiment and see what can be done there.
Do you want me to try upgrading the Janus showcase build to React 18 and see what breaks there and what doesn't?
Sure. Well, we do have lots of plugins on it, so maybe you can just start with a simpler version of Backstage or just a vanilla Backstage.
Okay.
Otherwise, yeah. I mean, if you want to have something more real world, then use the showcase.
Okay, I'm just upgrading the actual Backstage repository with all the plugins and stuff that it ships. Maybe it might be a better idea to start smaller.
I think you need to do what you're doing right now because you need to upgrade some stuff in the core packages anyways. So
okay. All right, I'm gonna stick with it then. That was all I had.
Okay, excellent. Any other updates? No? Okay, awesome. So thanks everyone, and that's it for today, and we'll meet again in 2 weeks. Bye.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.